Ryan sat at the kitchen table, his fingers idly tracing the rim of his coffee mug. Though the coffee had long gone cold, he could still hear Vanessa's last words echoing in his mind, sharp and cruel, like the snap of a door slamming shut. "I need more, Ryan. I deserve more." She had stood in the doorway of their shared apartment, her manicured hands gripping the suitcase handle, her lips pursed in an expression that was equal parts pity and triumph. Ryan had said nothing. He simply watched as she delivered her final, devastating verdict. "Derek can give me things you never could." The words hit like a gut punch, but he refused to let her see it. Instead, he only nodded, his silence unsettling her. Vanessa shifted from foot to foot, perhaps expecting him to plead, to bargain. When he didn't, she huffed, flipping her glossy hair over her shoulder. "I really hope you find someone, Ryan, someone at your level." And just like that, she was gone. Ryan didn't move for a long time. The quiet of the apartment settled in around him, heavier than it had ever been before. The space they had once shared, filled with her laughter, her perfume, her late-night musings about designer handbags and luxury vacations, was now empty. But emptiness, Ryan decided, was better than betrayal. He stood slowly, exhaling a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. His reflection in the window showed a man at a crossroads. Tired, yes, but not broken. A man who had given his heart to a woman who saw his love as currency, something to be exchanged for something shinier, richer. That night he didn't mourn Vanessa's departure. Instead, he picked up his phone and scrolled through his list of contacts. He found the number he hadn't called in years. His old mentor, a successful entrepreneur who had once told him that the best revenge was not anger, but success. Ryan's thumb hovered over the call button. Then he pressed it. "Hey David, it's Ryan. I think I'm finally ready to take that leap." The next morning, he packed up Vanessa's leftover things, dropping them off at a donation center without a second thought. She had left for what she thought was a better life, but she had no idea that in doing so, she had set him free. And Ryan? He was about to prove that the best thing a man could do after being discarded was to rise higher than anyone ever expected. The months following Vanessa's departure were not easy, but Ryan had never been the kind of man to fold under pressure. If anything, the sting of betrayal had become fuel, propelling him toward a future he had once only dreamed of. Gone were the days of quiet resignation, of living paycheck to paycheck while stretching himself thin just to make Vanessa happy. Now, every hour he spent working wasn't for her approval. It was for himself. Ryan poured himself into his business, an idea he had kept on the back burner for years while Vanessa's expensive tastes had kept them financially stagnant. She had always laughed when he mentioned starting something of his own, dismissing it as a small-time dream. But David, his old mentor, saw something in him that Vanessa never had. Potential. "You've always had the work ethic, Ryan," David had told him over drinks one evening, "but now you have something even more valuable, nothing to lose." Ryan took those words to heart. With David's guidance and a relentless drive, he built his real estate investment firm from the ground up. At first it was just him, working long nights from his modest apartment, networking with developers, and studying the market with an obsessive focus. But success, he learned, wasn't about luck. It was about preparation meeting opportunity. And opportunity finally arrived. A small apartment complex in an up-and-coming neighborhood was going into foreclosure. With David's help, Ryan managed to secure the property, flipping it into high-end rental units. The return was staggering. One deal led to another, his name started making rounds in the industry, and before long he wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. The transformation wasn't just financial. Ryan changed physically too. The stress of his previous life had left him weary, drained, but now, with a newfound purpose, he hit the gym harder than ever, shedding the weight of old insecurities along with the burdens Vanessa had left behind. Confidence replaced self-doubt. Discipline replaced complacency. By the time a year had passed, the man staring back at him in the mirror was barely recognizable. The once overlooked, small-minded Ryan was now a force to be reckoned with. And he was just getting started. One evening, as he locked up his new downtown office, a sleek, glass-walled space that overlooked the city, his phone buzzed with a notification, a social media post. Vanessa. Curiosity won over indifference, and Ryan clicked the notification. The glamorous photos were gone. No more champagne toasts on yachts, no more luxury vacations in the Maldives. Instead, a grainy picture of Vanessa in a dimly lit cafe, her once pristine designer handbag now showing signs of wear. The caption read, Sometimes things don't work out the way you planned, but life goes on. Ryan smirked. He knew exactly what had happened. Derek's empire had crumbled, and now Vanessa was standing in the ruins of her choices. She had thought money would buy happiness, but Ryan, he had built his own. Vanessa sat in the dimly lit cafe, her manicured fingers anxiously drumming against the chipped ceramic mug in front of her. The cafe was a far cry from the high-end restaurants she once flaunted on social media. The scent of stale coffee and desperation hung thick in the air, mingling with the weight of her regret. She scrolled through her phone, her throat tightening as she tapped Ryan's profile. A new post, him at an exclusive gala, dressed in a tailored suit, standing beside influential investors, the skyline of the city shimmering behind him. He looked different, stronger, sharper, more confident than he had ever been. With her, Vanessa's stomach twisted. Ryan had moved on, thrived, and she had crashed spectacularly. Derek, the man she had sacrificed everything for, had been nothing more than a polished illusion. The sports cars, leased. The penthouse, rented with borrowed money. The vacations, funded by maxed-out credit cards. The truth had unraveled painfully over the past few months, one devastating realization at a time. First, the foreclosure notice had arrived. Then, the collectors started calling. And finally, Derek, her supposed ticket to a luxurious future, had vanished, leaving her drowning in debt. No closure, no apologies, just gone. Her so-called friends, the ones who had cheered her on when she left Ryan, had faded into the background. Their smiles disappeared as soon as the money dried up. She had no one, except, maybe. Vanessa hesitated, her thumb hovering over Ryan's number. She hadn't spoken to him since the day she walked out, but surely he still cared. Ryan had always been the safe choice, the steady presence. He had loved her in a way Derek never could. She took a breath and hit the call button. The phone rang once. Twice. Then he picked up. "Ryan," she said, her voice softer than she intended. "It's me." A pause. "I know," he replied, his tone unreadable. Vanessa forced a shaky laugh. "Wow, no, how have you been? No, it's been a while. I know why you're calling," Ryan said simply. Her chest tightened. "Ryan, I made a mistake." Silence. "I didn't realize what I had with you," she continued. "You were always there for me, always put me first. I was selfish. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but maybe we can talk? Catch up?" She heard him sigh on the other end. And then, in a voice so calm it sent chills down her spine, he said, "You made your choice, Vanessa. Now live with it." Click. Vanessa sat frozen, the dial tone humming in her ear. For the first time, the reality hit her like a freight train. Ryan was gone. Not just from her life, but from the version of him she once knew. And she had lost everything. Vanessa sat in stunned silence, the phone still pressed against her ear even though the call had ended. The weight of Ryan's words settled deep in her chest. "You made your choice. Now live with it." She had expected resistance, maybe even anger. What she hadn't anticipated was indifference. The Ryan she remembered, the man who once adored her, who would have done anything to keep her, was gone. In his place stood someone colder, wiser, untouchable. A lump formed in her throat as she looked around the cafe. The dull hum of conversation, the distant clatter of dishes. It all felt surreal, like she was watching herself from the outside. A year ago, she wouldn't have been caught dead in a place like this. Back then, her days were filled with designer boutiques, luxury dinners, and expensive vacations. Now, she was barely scraping by, living in a shoebox apartment she could hardly afford. The credit cards were maxed out. The landlord was already hinting at eviction, and the so-called friends who once admired her lifestyle had vanished the moment the money did. And Derek, she scoffed bitterly. That coward had disappeared overnight, leaving her to deal with the financial mess he had created. No warning, no explanation, just a text that read, "Vanessa, things aren't working out. I need to disappear for a while. Take care. Take care." Her nails dug into her palm as she fought back the sting of humiliation. With nowhere else to turn, she had reached out to Ryan, expecting, that he would offer her a second chance. She thought she still had power over him, that she could flash a few tears and play the regretful ex-lover, but he hadn't fallen for it. That realization stung more than anything. For the first time in a long while, Vanessa truly saw herself, not as the woman she used to be, confident, desired, in control, but as what she had become, a woman who had gambled away a good man for an illusion. Ryan had always been the kind of man who built things, his career, his future, their life together. She, on the other hand, had only known how to consume, to take, to demand more. And when she thought she had found something better, she had tossed him aside like an old coat. She thought she was upgrading. Instead, she had downgraded herself. Now he was successful, thriving. The world saw him as a rising star, while she had faded into irrelevance. Vanessa gritted her teeth, blinking away the tears that threatened to spill. She wouldn't fall apart. Not here, not now, but deep inside, she knew. Ryan had done what she never could. He had moved on, and for the first time in her life, Vanessa realized she had no idea how to do the same. The days after Ryan's rejection stretched into weeks, each one pressing down on Vanessa like a weight she couldn't shake. The certainty she had once walked with, the confidence that she could always land on her feet, was gone. For the first time in her life, she had no backup plan. She tried to push forward, sending out resumes to high-end firms, attempting to network her way back into the lifestyle she had lost. But the calls never came. Her past reputation, Derek's glamorous girlfriend, the woman who mocked her ex while flaunting her better life, had done her no favors. People remembered. They remembered how she had paraded Derek's wealth on social media, how she had turned up her nose at those who didn't fit into her new world. And now that she was no longer the woman draped in designer brands, sipping champagne on yachts, she was met with a different kind of silence. Indifference. Vanessa had become invisible. One evening, as she scrolled through her dwindling bank balance, she saw a familiar name pop up in her suggested contacts. Ryan. His new company had been making headlines, and curiosity got the better of her. She clicked on his profile, hoping to see some sign of the man she used to know. Instead, what she found twisted the knife even deeper. A picture of Ryan at a private industry event, shaking hands with major investors. Another of him at a charity gala, standing beside a striking woman in an elegant black dress. She was beautiful, poised, the kind of woman Vanessa once thought she was. The caption beneath the photo read, "Exciting night with my biggest supporter." Vanessa's chest tightened. He had moved on. Completely. And yet, she couldn't stop herself. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she typed a message. "Hey, can we talk?" She stared at the words, her heart pounding. Part of her knew how this would end. But the other part, the desperate, hopeful part, clung to the idea that maybe, just maybe, he would respond. Minutes passed, then an hour. Finally, the 3 dots appeared. Her breath hitched as she watched, waiting. Then a reply. "There's nothing left to say, Vanessa. I wish you well." No anger, no lingering resentment, just finality. Vanessa's hands trembled as she set the phone down. She had always believed that power came from being desired, from knowing that no matter what, she could always have a way back. But Ryan had shut that door, locked it, and thrown away the key. For the first time, she felt something unfamiliar. Regret, not just for losing Ryan, but for all the years she had spent chasing things that never really mattered. She had thought wealth and status would bring her happiness. Instead, they had left her alone, forgotten, with nothing but the echoes of her own choices. And Ryan? He had won not just in success, but in something far greater. He had freed himself from her. And that, she realized with a crushing sense of finality, was the true consequence of her actions.